Hello everybody, TyronnCannon here, and welcome back to episode 5 of LeGM. Today is part 2 of the All-Star Weekend. Today we're going to be covering the All-Star game. That is what you will be seeing on screen, but we won't necessarily be talking about the All-Star game. We're going to be talking about our off-season targets, which LeBron has come up with. I know it's kind of a weird thing to cover at All-Star Weekend, but we're going to do it anyway. We've covered, we've got 6 players slash items to discuss. We've got 3 big men, 1 shooting guard and 1 small forward. Let's just get right into it. Our first target, this is not in any particular order. These are just players that we're going to be at least aiming for. The first one is Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler would be a perfect fit on this team. The only problem I have with Jimmy Butler is that he can't really shoot 3-pointers anymore. He sort of forgot how to do that. He was really good in Chicago, but since he's gotten to Miami, he's sort of forgotten how to shoot 3, so we would have to send him to some 3-point training. But I think he could sort of fill the Scottie Pippen role on the triangle that we're running here in Los Angeles. He's phenomenal on defense. I think he's going to be a great fit next to LeBron and Anthony Davis. I should mention that these targets that we're going for are with LeBron and Anthony Davis in mind. I don't plan on trading either of those two or Max Christie to get either of these targets. Those are sort of the 3 untouchables I've spoken about so far in this series. Everybody else, you know, within reason is available. The next target that we would be going after would be Bradley Beal. This is of all the ones that I'd be discussing today, is the one that's the least likely that we're going to go after, because we already do have Max Christie, who's going to be filling that starting shooting guard role for next season, I think. We've got him coming off the bench at least for this season, just his rookie season, just to get him adjusted to the NBA style. But once he's a bit more developed, we'll throw him in the starting lineup and have Gary Trent Jr. coming off the bench if he's not included in a trade in the off-season. But as I said, Bradley Beal, he's a good 3-point shooter. He's okay defensively, but he would be really coming in as sort of a specialist scorer. Sort of a third option on a championship team, hopefully, for next season. That's sort of the role I see in mind for Bradley Beal. But we'll just have to see how that plays out. The third person that we're going to be aiming for is Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors. So Pascal Siakam would be playing power forward on this team. We would move LeBron back to the small forward position. And I don't know what that means for OG Anunoby, but we'll obviously cross that bridge when we get to it. I really like Pascal Siakam. He can shoot 3s, he can defend well. The trouble is he's a little undersized, but other than that, he's a very, very good option, I think, to fit onto this Lakers roster. What that trade looks like, ideally we wouldn't send Gary Trent or OG Anunoby back to Toronto, because that's probably a little unrealistic, but we'd probably send some of our other pieces to Toronto in return for Pascal Siakam. The only trouble with all of these is that we haven't got any draft picks that we can trade, so we would have to do this exclusively with players or trade for draft picks and then trade them onto these teams that we're trying to get these players from. The fourth player that we're going to be targeting is actually a free agency. We'd have to clear up a fair amount of cap space to make this happen, and that's Kristaps Porzingis. We'd probably move Anthony Davis to the power forward position and then play Porzingis at center. Porzingis would be awesome on this team. The only concern I have is that a front court of Porzingis and Anthony Davis is so injury prone. I don't think I can go through a whole season, just these ticky-tack injuries happening all the time. So he's probably tied with Bradley Beal on being the least likely for me to go after. And the final pick, probably my personal favorite, my final player that we'd be going after is Domantas Sabonis, who I think a passing big man, fits the triangle perfectly. He's a good defender. He can shoot 3s. As I said, he's a great passer. We'd probably move Anthony Davis to the power forward position to accommodate Sabonis. But other than that, those are all the players that we're going to be aiming for. The last particular item, and it's a draft pick that we'd be aiming for, is the draft pick to secure Bronny James at point guard. Because we don't really have a point guard, and I haven't listed any point guards in our off-season targets, mainly because I couldn't find one that I actually liked that would fit our roster and that was actually, made sense. So Bronny James is actually probably the only player that plays point guard that makes sense for this roster at this point in time. But we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens with the draft, see who gets the number 1 pick. At this stage, Bronny is a projected top 3 prospect in this draft. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. So getting a top 3 pick won't be easy. We would have to give up some of our bench depth to make that happen. But assuming we do get Bronny, he would fit into our starting lineup straight away, I think. If he's a top 3 pick projected, I can only imagine he's going to be amazing for us. His ceiling was Hall of Fame Steve Nash, I believe it was. And then his floor was Isaiah Thomas. Really short Isaiah Thomas. I know both Isaiah Thomases are quite short, but the Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas, not the one that played for Detroit. But those are basically the 6 players that we're looking for specifically in the off-season. If none of these deals work out, we'll obviously look to bring in some other talent, some that I probably haven't even thought of yet, or that makes sense. But we'll figure that out, cross that bridge when we get to it. But I've actually covered everything I wanted to talk about, and we've just ticked over to the 7-minute mark of this episode. So I'm just going to ramble for the next. We've got 7 minutes to go here. The All-Star game, it's Team LeBron versus Team Jason, that being Jason Tatum. It starts out to be very, very close, and then the result, it gets very unbalanced towards the end of the game. I won't spoil who wins, but you'll figure it out based on the highlights that are happening in front of you. But the next episode that we're going to be covering today is a bit of a shorter one. I did say that all the All-Star Weekend episodes, if we did them as one episode, would be longer. It's actually shorter than I thought it would be. I was able to edit down most of the All-Star game into 15 minutes, which I was pretty happy with. So it's actually a much shorter episode than I thought it was going to be, which is why I split it into 2 parts initially. But the rest of the season, I'm pretty comfortable with the roster that we've constructed. We do have a vote as for who the governor is going to be. At this point, we've received 1 vote, and the vote is for Big Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal, to be the governor. So at this stage, Shaq will be the governor, and LeBron will be the general manager. So famously, they were teammates on the 2009-2010 Cleveland Cavaliers in Shaq's second to last season in the NBA and LeBron's last season in Cleveland the first time around before he left for Miami. Shaq then left to go to Boston and then retired after he blew out his Achilles. So, there's a nice block by Embiid. I'm trying not to commentate too much over top of the game because I feel like it sort of takes away from the gameplay a little bit. So I'm just going to talk about the rest of the season. We're currently 50-8. That's our record, which is very good considering we don't have Anthony Davis. He's only played 11 games. And as I've said in the last episode, episode 4, he's projected to come back in the final week of the season. So I think he's 1 to 2 months away. So hopefully he comes back sooner rather than later. We don't really want him coming back halfway through a playoff series. That's really not the ideal time to be changing around your starting 5. So if we can get him in, play the last couple of regular season games, get him back into the lineup, there's a big flop by Valanciunas. That would be ideal. Siakam's got the ball now. Siakam is an all-star this season. I know Porzingis is, and I know Sabonis is. Jimmy Butler and Bradley Beal, I believe, aren't all-stars this season, so I might actually make it easier to trade for those guys. So we'll just see, as you can see, the score is 35-49. I will say that Jason Tatum's team does win this game. They really blew the game out in the third quarter. It was close. I think the score was even at quarter time. I think they were only up by a little bit at the halftime, but yeah, the third and fourth quarter, they just blew Team LeBron out of the water. But I would say this has been a really fun couple of episodes. I don't know, when I play my GM, I usually just skip over All-Star Weekend, but it's actually been really fun seeing and doing this as a part of a video series, getting the team together, preparing for All-Star Weekend, playing the All-Star game, watching the dunk contest. It's been a really good time. I know we didn't do too much on the Rising Stars Challenge, so maybe next season we'll focus on that a bit more if we do have Bronny and Bronny's playing in the Rising Stars Challenge. So we'll probably focus on that a bit more next season, but we do have a fairly young roster, so I won't like trade everybody to get one of these targets that we're aiming for. But if we can trade maybe one or two of those young players to get a really good seasoned veteran, such as a Jimmy Butler or a Pascal Siakam, that would be ideal. And then we can maybe pick somebody up in free agency as well. I don't know how much cap space we're going to be able to have, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But as I said about 5 minutes ago, I really haven't got much more to say about this episode. I was planning to stretch out my off-season targets to about to across the whole episode, but I really got all that I wanted out of the way really early. So I've had to ramble on a little bit, so I do apologize for that. Hopefully it's somewhat entertaining just hearing me talk. Anyway, there's two minutes to go in the All-Star game. Jason Tatum's team is up by 16 points. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the highlights package I've put together of this game. There's been a few blocks. The standout players for me were Joel Embiid and Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum hit about 4 threes from the exact same position throughout this game, and it was absolutely ridiculous. And Joel Embiid, for it being an All-Star game, has played some really good defense. I was thinking about trading for someone like a Nikola Jokic or a Joel Embiid, but I figured that would just be so difficult to do without good draft picks. And as I said, I don't want to trade my entire team. And I would probably have to trade Anthony Davis to get one of those guys, which I don't really see the point of doing. We're trying to add on to what we've already got rather than sort of pick one and then replace one with another guy. So we'll just see what the market's like and obviously do something that makes sense for the team rather than just making a trade for trade's sake. Okay, what's next episode is going to be Anthony Davis's return. So we're going to do that. And then the episode after that, so episode 7, we're going to do the playoffs. I'm not sure if we'll do the whole playoffs in one episode. It depends how deep we go. For example, if we might do the first 2 rounds and then do the conference finals and the finals in one episode. So we'll do round 1 and round 2 in one, and then conference finals and NBA finals in the next. And then we'll go from there. And that is the All-Star game wrapped up. Team Jason wins 61-50 in a game that probably could have been a little bit closer, in my opinion. But that's fine. It's the All-Star game. People, hopefully it was entertaining for the fans. I know in real life the All-Star game copped a bit of crap for not being that great this year. So hopefully that can improve. But that'll wrap things up for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching up until this point. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. If you wish to join my Discord, there's a link to that below. And until next time, hope you have fun. Bye!